Peace, Facebook family. I did a video a couple of days ago about the lost seed of Abraham, the Israelites, and the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And I decided that I would do a part 2 and maybe just expand it a little bit. Basically, the lost seed of Abraham. There are people on the internet teaching that the transatlantic slave trade, that the white man and Europeans went to Africa and kidnapped black people and by the millions and brought us here to North America and South America for that matter, but primarily for the sake of this video to North America, that's a big hoax, and that we black people were already living here in large numbers. So when the white man came here, they found us black people here as quote unquote Indians or just black people. Now, that idea is very problematic, and there's really not too much to support that idea. And furthermore, that idea undermines the whole prophecy of the lost seed of Abraham. First, I would just want to say, look, from a historical point of view, yes, the black man, we were here, visited here, lived here, had marks, are still present. They are finding different statues and, different artifacts and things of that nature, if you will, that, yeah, the black man was here in this part of the world, the Western Hemisphere. But that in no way means that we were here in the millions, and that the transatlantic slave trade didn't exist. That's incorrect. That's a mistake that people are making, and it's really turning the history upside down. Furthermore, the Indians were here, and Indians, of course, are black people, or what we call Aboriginal people. They are black people. Originally, they were dark-skinned black people with, and that's somewhat a redundancy, they were black people or dark-skinned people with straight hair, because we should all know you got two kinds of black people, or two types of black people on the planet Earth. You have black people with kinky hair, primarily from the continent we call Africa, and then you got black people with straight hair, like the original inhabitants of India. And it just so happens, according to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that's where the Indians came from. The people that we call Indians or Native Americans originally lived in the country, which is a subcontinent that is known as India today, and that they were forced to leave India as a chastisement and migrate to North America. So they walked north, they traveled north through Asia up into Russia, what they call Siberia. There was a land bridge there across the Bering Strait, which once you cross the Bering Strait, that takes you into North America, which is present-day Alaska. And they went through Canada. Some of them stayed in Canada. Some of them continued on to America, if you will, present-day America, and further south. Now, that's the history of the Indians. And again, of course, over the centuries of time, the black man, we being the original owners of the planet, we traveled the planet. We know every square inch of it. And we had outposts and things of that nature all over the planet. And North America was one of the places that we had outposts. And we left marks and artifacts of our presence that we were here. So, but that in no way should it be construed that millions and millions of black people were already living here as Indians, the black man from Africa. That's a gross error. And one of the reasons why, of course, historically, that's not supported. And then from a maybe even a more important point of view, look, you got something in the scriptures known as the lost seed of Abraham. And in chapter 15, verse 13, it says that the seed of Abraham will be lost in a land that's not theirs. They will be kidnapped, paraphrasing, and taken to a strange land, and they were made they would be made to serve the people. And after 400 years, they would be taken, that they would return home to their own land and given a great reward. So if you're saying that the transatlantic slave trade didn't exist, then who is the lost seed of Abraham? And this is a serious question, because if we're not the lost seed of Abraham, again, who is the lost seed of Abraham? The Jews for centuries claimed that they were the lost seed of Abraham. But with the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that was all straightened out, that no, the Jews are not the lost seed of Abraham. It's the black man here in the wilderness of North America that's the lost seed of Abraham. And that we as God's people, God had to come and search for us, to find us, and teach us. Hence the resurrection. That's the resurrection. So throughout the Bible, you have numerous references that God had to come to find the lost sheep. Say, for example, in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 34, verses like 11, around verse 11, where it says, I, even I, God talking, had to search for my lost sheep. So again, if the black man wasn't taken from Africa, that's some kind of big hoax perpetrated by who, I don't know. And for what purpose, I don't know. But who is the lost seed of Abraham? Who fulfills the lost seed of Abraham? Because the whole Bible is premised on the lost seed of Abraham being God's people, being lost in the world, found by God, and taught and resurrected so they could be the leaders of the world. So let's consider that. Look into that. If you think that the transatlantic slave trade was a hoax, look into that. Because this is very important. This is very, very important. Now, the next thing we want to talk about again, and this is the Israelites, the lost seed of Abraham, and the 10 lost tribes, part 2, is you got people saying that the black man, we are the Israelites of the scriptures. Now, again, this is seriously problematic, because when you know who Israel is, there's no way that we as black people want to identify with Israel. Now, the whole idea of when you say Israelites, that's derived from the name Israel. And we're going to get into this right now. Abraham, according to the scriptures, had 2 sons. He had a son named Ishmael and he had a son named Isaac. Ishmael, his first son. Abraham was married to a woman named Sarah. Sarah couldn't have any children. So Sarah told Abraham, marry my handmaid Hagar, some say Hagar, and let her produce you a son. So Abraham did, and Hagar produced Ishmael for him. Later, God told Sarah that he was going to open her womb so she can have a baby. And that's what happened. Sarah got pregnant and she had another son for Abraham, and his name was Isaac. Now, it's important to understand that according to the scholars of the Bible, Ishmael represents the Arabs in the black nation, and Isaac represents the Jews and the white race. And this is further bore out because and I should just also preface that much of what you read in the Bible is not to be taken literally, but is an allegory or a sign or a symbol. By allegory, I mean something that has a hidden or deeper meaning to it. So in Abraham's history there's much allegory in there. So after Sarah had Isaac, Sarah didn't want Hagar and Ishmael in the house. So she convinced Abraham to put them out the house. So they were outcasts. So Abraham took Hagar and Ishmael, they were living around Mecca. They were living in Arabia, and he took them to Mecca, and he left them there. And they didn't have any food, they didn't have any water, or the food and water that they had soon ran out. And Hagar was trying to find food and water for the baby, Ishmael. So, and that part of Abraham's history and Ishmael and Hagar is what the Islamic or Muslim Hajj is all about when they make pilgrimage every year. We're not going into the Hajj, but my point is that Hagar and Ishmael represent the outcast, the rejected people. And this goes further in the Bible as to the rejected stone, if you will. The stone the builders rejected will become the head. So this represents black people. Furthermore, just to show you a little bit more proof in terms of how Ishmael represents the Arabs in the black nation, the Arabs readily tell you that they are descendants, if you will, of Ishmael. And there's a famous verse or some verses in the Bible in, like, say, the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, where when God comes and makes his appearance, the people that he's coming to save are the villages of what the scriptures call, again in Isaiah 42, the villages of Kedar. Kedar is the son of Ishmael. Kedar means black. So this is a further indication as to who Ishmael represents in the scriptures. So with that established, look, Isaac represents the Jews and the Jews and the white race in general. Now Isaac had a son called Jacob. According to the scriptures, again, allegorically speaking, Isaac's wife, Rebekah, was pregnant with twins, and she was having pain in her womb. So God told her the reason why you have pain in your womb is because you have, quote unquote, two nations in your womb. Not two children, unborn children, but two nations. One is stronger than the other, but the weaker shall rule the stronger. Paraphrasing verses out of Genesis chapter 25. So when Rebekah delivered the twins, Isaac was the firstborn. He came out first. Excuse me, not Isaac. Esau was the firstborn. He came out first. Jacob, the secondborn, came out holding the heel of his brother Esau. So Jacob's name means the heel catcher and the supplanter. By heel catcher, symbolically speaking, means that Jacob will grow up. His character was to trip people up, to get the upper hand on them. The supplanter, of course, means one who supersedes another in a position or a place. So this is an indication that Jacob represents the white race, and that the white race superseded the black nation as the ruler of the planet, as the ruler of the planet Earth. So now these are teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but just in terms of who Jacob represents, it's readily agreed upon by anyone that really knows something about the Bible, who studied in the Bible. Everyone knows that Isaac and Jacob represent the white race. Now, Jacob is always depicted, at least in Genesis, as an underhanded person, a person that's always scheming and trying to get the upper hand on somebody that's untrustworthy. Jacob stole his brother Esau's birthright. What does that mean? Again, in the 25th chapter of Genesis. What does that indicate? That indicates that, again, that shows you how the white race was able to get the rule of the planet from the black nation. And probably the most significant verses about Jacob in the Bible, at least in my opinion, are Genesis chapter 32, where Jacob is seen wrestling with God. It says an angel, but it's agreed upon that he wrestled, that the angel actually is referring to God. Now, what God-fearing person going to wrestle with God? Have a contest of strength against God or with God. And then Jacob got the best of God, and God said, okay, you got the best of me. Jacob told him, give me a blessing. So God said, yeah, I'm going to give you a blessing. I'm going to make you a prince among men. But I'm going to touch the hollow of your thigh and make you walk crooked. And I'm going to change your name. Your name is not Jacob anymore. Your name now should be Israel. So the name Israel comes from the fact that according to the 32nd chapter of Genesis, God changed Jacob's name to Israel. Israel is a name that means striver with God. It has some other meanings too. Who strives with God? You humble to God. You ain't trying to challenge God or you struggle with God. You humble to God. So these are all indications that Jacob is not viewed upon, or Israel, as a good person or a good group of people. We should bear that in mind if we, you trying to say that black people, and I heard this before. I heard this many years ago. And this was dealing with the Quran. People were thinking that the children of Israel in the Quran is referring to black people. No, it's the same. And the children, Israel in the Bible and children in the Quran are the same group of people. So the fact that Jacob walked with a limp, meaning that he was crooked. He walked crooked. That depicts the character of white people. Crooked in their ways, crooked in their dealings. Alhamdulillah. And I should also emphasize, if you know anything about the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or the supreme wisdom lessons of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Yaqub is an Arabic name for Jacob. Jacob is the English name for the Arabic Yaqub. Jacob is Yaqub. What you read in the Bible is talking about, when it talks about Jacob, it's talking about Yaqub. We know that Yaqub, the father of the white race. And we're not going into too deep into Yaqub's history, but we already went into Yaqub's history about how he's the supplanter, the heel catcher, how his name was changed to Israel, how he wrestled with God, how he stole Esau's birthright. That's Yaqub's history. Also, you have Jacob in the 30th chapter of Genesis. He's found dealing with crossbreeding sheep, goat, and cattle. What is all that about? And that's an indication why the devil is depicted, symbolically speaking. Of course, we know there's no devil in the ground, but symbolically speaking, many times the devil is depicted with horns and a tail and hoofs, split hoofs. Let's just think. Let's understand, if we're going to put something out that say the black man is Israel, let's think about it. Let's get our facts right before we put it out, because we putting out something that that's not well thought out. It's not holding water once you know some certain keys about how the scriptures work. Because when you say the black man is Israel, again, just like if you saying the transatlantic slave trade didn't exist, you turning the history upside down. And I also want to just say a few more things about the lost sheep, as just going back to the lost seed of Abraham and Israel. This coincides, so beautifully. I thought about this after I did the first part of this video, just to show you that Israel is not the people. It can't be black people. For instance, in the 15th chapter of Matthew in the Bible, Jesus said, he's not coming to the house of Israel. He's coming to the lost sheep in the house of Israel. Again, Jesus said in the 15th chapter of Matthew, he's not coming to the house of Israel. He's not coming to save them. Here Jesus is depicted as God. He's not coming to the house of Israel because that's the enemy. He's coming to a people that's been swallowed up, that's been captured by the house of Israel, depicted as the lost sheep, the lost seed of Abraham. Again, using Jesus' history, or what's recorded of Jesus. Jesus condemned the white race as being the killers of the prophets, especially around the 23rd chapter of Matthew. Again, in Matthew, woe unto Jerusalem, the killers of the prophets, the rejectors of the prophets. Jerusalem being the spiritual home of Israel. Let's get our history right and let's understand what we putting out. If people putting out black man is Israel, that's seriously problematic. And also along that line, a similar line, you got people teaching about the black Jews, that the original Jews, if you will, are black, and that somehow there was a group of Europeans, Caucasians, the Khazars, who lived around Russia, around Turkey, like southern Russia, around Turkey, that they co-opted the Jewish religion from the black Jews and are misrepresenting themselves as real Jews. Now, again, this is another problematic thing that really we need to talk about this, because if you accept that premise, now you turn in the history of Moses going into the caves and hillsides of Europe to teach the white man. You're turning that upside down. Because we should all know that, of course, look, the home of the Europeans or the Caucasian is Europe. That's their home. And they were savage. They went savage or were savage, i.e. barbarians, if you will. Indo-Europeans, these are savage people. They were savage people and they lost the knowledge of themselves. That was a chastisement put on them by the black nation for making trouble among black people. And we're not going too deep into that history of how they got into Europe, but nonetheless, Europe is a home of the Caucasians, and they were savages, and they had to be taught civilization. And the person that taught them their first lessons in civilization, of course, is Moses or Musa. Moses going into the caves and hillsides of Europe to teach the white race their first lessons in civilization. And the people who became the white race, who became the followers of Moses, are known as Jews. What Moses taught the white race was Islam put in a special form to teach them how to put them on the road to civilization and ruling the black nation. What Moses taught the white race was really not for the black man. Now, of course, we know Moses was a half original man or a black man from Egypt. And there are some people who say that he lived in what they call Lower Egypt, around the Mediterranean. Mr. Muhammad said he spoke ancient Egyptian Arabic. And we know that he was commissioned, if you will, to go to Europe or the Caucasus Mountains to teach the white man or white people. And that, again, the followers of Moses are known as Jews. Now, historically, are there black people who ascribe to the same teachings that Moses taught or the same body of knowledge? Of course. It's all came from one source, the black man. This is our knowledge. But specifically speaking, when you talk about Jews, you're talking about black people. You're talking about white people. You're not talking about the black nation. This needs to be understood. Because again, now we have, history is being put out like this is right in the Zach, and it's not right in the Zach. Moses, the followers of Moses, and this is based on the teachings of Elijah Muhammad. This is not me talking, Yasin, because I don't know anything except, the basis of my knowledge is the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which I researched. I had the opportunity to research and study some of the teachings, and I found it to be true. You got a book, there's a book called The Story of Mankind, where you have the author saying that the Europeans, the Caucasians were savages, and that a mysterious man from Egypt came to teach them, put them on the road to civilization. Who could that be? None other than Musa or Moses. So again, when we talk about Jews, it's understood we talking about white people. The Bible talks about Jews and Gentiles. Jews are followers of Moses. Gentiles are Caucasian people who don't follow the teachings of Moses. So, and again, yes, they got black Jews, or people who call themselves black Jews, or people who follow what Moses taught. They came in contact with Moses' teachings and adopted it, or they found the original source of Moses' teachings and identify calling themselves Jews. But when you understand the history, no, the Jews, the true Jews are the white race, is not the black people. And we have to make these distinctions. We have to really be knowledgeable in some of our basic history. Because again, if you're saying that the original Jews are black, then what was Moses' work all about? What do you call Moses going to the caves and hillsides of Europe teaching the white race? What do you call that? What is that history all about? Again, if you accept the idea that, the real Jews are black, and that a group of Caucasians came along thousands of years after Moses and somehow co-opted or stole the teachings of Moses and now misrepresenting themselves as Jews, you turning the history upside down. So let's be careful in what we're teaching. Let's be careful in what we're putting out. Praise be to Allah. So with that, I'm going to end this video. Peace.